The first thing Rowan Blake heard was the sound of his own blood hitting the deck plating, steady, rhythmic, almost peaceful, if he didn't think too hard about where it was coming from. Above him, 7,000 cadets from 41 worlds screamed into the vaulted dome of the proving hall, some in fury, some in disbelief. A scattered few, all human, crammed into the tiny gallery reserved for Earth's 5 cadets. In something close to horror, Draxis Vorn stood over him, 4 arms, 6.5 feet of interlocking black carapace, scarred from 100 sanctioned duels. A war name 3 centuries old was etched into his chest plate, in a script older than most of the species watching. He had not broken a sweat. Yield, Draxis said. It wasn't a question. It was a verdict, already written, already signed. Rowan spat blood onto the mat, tasted copper, and looked up into 4 black eyes. Then he smiled. Nobody in that arena understood why. Not the roaring crowd, not the Concord Assembly observers seated in their high glass box, pretending this was just a cadet tournament and not the deciding vote on whether humanity belonged among the stars at all. Not even Draxis, whose raised fist had gone very, very still, because nobody knew yet that Rowan Blake hadn't come to the proving trials to win a fight. He'd come to end one that started long before either of them stepped onto this mat. One Draxis didn't even know he was fighting, but none of this had begun in the arena. It had begun 3 days earlier, in a training hall that smelled of ozone and fear. The Aurelian Spire didn't look like a school. It looked like a blade someone had decided to live inside. 3 kilometers of dark alloy spun around a dying yellow star, home to the brightest, cruelest, most promising cadets in the Concord. 41 species. One rule that mattered more than anything written in the charter. Strength earns respect, and nothing else does. Humanity had been Concord members for 6 years. Cadets, for 1. Rowan had learned fast that most of the Spire watched humans the way you'd watch a new pet. Curious, faintly amused, waiting to see if it could do any tricks before deciding whether it belonged at the table or under it. Draxis Vorn had already decided. Again, he said, watching a small Uventari cadet named Rena pick herself off the practice mat for the 4th time, feathers along her jaw damp with sweat, one wing arm trembling where he'd twisted it. Or does your species simply not have a word for again? Rena didn't answer. She just got up. That was the worst part, Rowan thought. She always got up. He watched from the equipment rack, close enough to hear everything and say nothing, because Commandant Iari's first lesson to the human cadets had been blunt. Draxis Vorn is the son of General Kaelus Vorn, hero of the Hollow War, and this Spire will forgive him things it will never forgive you. Rowan had believed her, right up until Draxis turned mid-taunt and found something new to be amused by. Blake. He said the name like it tasted bad. Come to watch your betters train. Came to fix a sensor rig. Rowan held up the toolkit. Both things were true. Draxis crossed the hall in 4 strides. 4 arms unfolding like he had all the room in the world and intended to use every centimeter of it. Cadets peeled back to give him space. Nobody peeled back for Rowan. Your kind arrived 6 years ago, Draxis said, circling him slowly, crawling out of one gravity well. No claws, no venom, nothing but soft skin and softer manners. And the Concord let you sit in our classrooms. He leaned down. Up close, Rowan could see hairline scars crossing his mandibles, dozens of them. None from combat, the kind you got from a species that molted and scraped itself raw doing it. Tell me, what exactly do humans bring to a room full of warriors? The hall had gone silent, waiting. Ask me after the proving trials. Rowan said it wasn't planned. It wasn't smart. But Draxis had spent the better part of a week making the smallest cadet in the hall cry in front of 41 worlds, and something in Rowan's chest had simply run out of room for patience. Draxis went very still. Then, slowly, he began to laugh, a dry, clicking sound that made every cadet in the hall flinch. The proving trials, he said, are for warriors, small one. Not for whatever you are, then it should be an easy match. By the next morning, the challenge was posted on every terminal in the Spire. Rowan Blake had 3 days to become something he wasn't, or humiliate his entire species in front of the only people deciding whether Earth got to stay in the Concord at all. Commandant Yeslin Iari did not look up when Rowan entered her office. She was old, for an Uventari, feathers gone the color of ash along her crest, one eye replaced with a duller mechanical twin she'd earned somewhere in the Hollow War 30 years and 1 lifetime ago, fighting Draxis's people. "No," she said, before he'd even spoken. "I haven't asked yet. You want me to train you to survive Draxis Vorn in 3 days? The answer is still no." She looked up at last. "Do you know why he's never lost a sanctioned match in 3 years, human? Because he's stronger than everyone he fights. Because he's stronger than everyone he fights. And I trained half of them, and none of it mattered." Her mechanical eye clicked, focusing. "I fought his father's generation. I watched entire fleets break, built by people who thought courage could outmuscle physics. You cannot outstrength a Kryvex. You will lose. The only question is how much of yourself you lose with it. I'm not trying to outstrength him." That got her attention. Rowan set his sister's last transmission on the desk between them. Small's data slate, a message he'd already watched 40 times on the transport out from Earth. "You're going to go up there and let them think we're small," T. Mia had said, 12 years old and utterly certain of it, "and then you're going to prove humans don't win by being the biggest thing in the room. We never have." "I need 3 days," said. "Not to become a warrior, to learn everything about how one fights." Iari was quiet a long moment. Then she said something that would matter far more than either of them understood yet. "There's a cadet in the medical bay," she said. "Tolvith, Uventari, like me. Draxis broke 3 of his flight bones in a training accident 8 months ago. The official report says equipment failure." Her mechanical eye didn't blink. "I've kept the real diagnostics. I was waiting for a reason to use them." Something cold settled in Rowan's stomach. "Why haven't you?" "Because General Vorn sits on this Spire's Oversight Council, and evidence without power behind it is just a story nobody important has to believe." She slid the slate back toward him. "But if a human cadet stood in that arena and forced the entire assembly to actually watch," she didn't finish. She didn't need to. 3 days, Iari said. "We start now. And Blake, whatever you're planning, I hope you understand what it will cost you if you're wrong." He didn't. Not fully. Not yet. That understanding would come later, on the mat, with his own blood in his mouth. The proving trials ran 2 full days before Rowan's match, 41 species narrowing down to their finest, and by the final morning, the assembly observers had quietly filled the high glass box above the arena. Iari's private channels had confirmed it the night before. The Concord was deciding humanity's permanent membership this week, and someone in General Vorn's office had specifically requested Rowan's match be moved to the final, most watched slot of the tournament. That wasn't a coincidence. That was a message, written for an audience of 41 worlds. Watch what happens to the small one's Draxis found him alone in the tunnel before the match, which was its own kind of message. "You could still withdraw," he said. It almost sounded like an offer. "You could still ask why I'm not scared." Something flickered behind Draxis's 4 black eyes, not quite doubt, but close enough to its neighborhood. "My father is watching," he said, quieter than Rowan had ever heard him. "He has been watching every match I've fought since I was younger than the cadet I keep making cry." It came out like a confession he hadn't meant to give. "Losing is not an option available to me, human. It never has been." Then the tunnel doors opened, and the moment was gone, buried under noise and light. The match itself was not close, not in the way the crowd expected. Draxis was faster than Rowan had trained for, stronger than every simulation had modeled, and within 90 seconds Rowan had a cracked rib, a torn shoulder, and the sick, growing certainty that Iari had been right about the physics of it. He went down twice, got up twice. On the third exchange, Draxis's forearm caught him across the jaw hard enough that the whole arena rang like a struck bell, and Rowan hit the mat and didn't immediately get back up. This was the moment the Spire would replay for years. Draxis standing over him, fist drawn back for a strike that every sanctioned rulebook in Concord history explicitly forbade once an opponent was down and yielding. Except Rowan hadn't yielded. He'd smiled. "You're not actually going to hit a downed opponent," he said, blood in his teeth, loud enough to carry, in front of the entire assembly. "Are you?" The hall went silent in a way 7,000 throats had never managed before, because everyone, every cadet, every camera drone broadcasting to 41 homeworlds had just heard it, had just understood, in the space of one sentence, exactly what Rowan Blake had spent 3 days building toward. Not a training program, a trap with only one door and General Vorn's fingerprints pressed into every inch of the frame. Draxis's fist didn't move. "Not forward. Not back. Finish it." The voice came from the private box above, cold and certain, a command clearly given long before the match ever started. General Draxis Vorn, leaning forward, 4 eyes fixed on his son. "He has already lost. End it." Properly meant something specific under Krivek's law. It meant a strike that would leave Rowan broken in ways that healed slowly, if they healed at all. A message a translator would need to soften. Draxis looked down at Rowan. Rowan looked back and didn't look away, didn't stop smiling, because he'd gambled everything. His ribs, his shoulder, quite possibly his species' entire future among the stars, on one single, unprovable bet that somewhere underneath 3 years of performing his father's cruelty, there was still a person who had never wanted any of this either. 3 seconds passed. To 7,000 held breaths, it felt like 3 years. Then Draxis Vorn opened his fist and offered Rowan his hand instead. The hall didn't roar. It went dead silent. 41 species, collectively recalculating everything they thought they understood about the match they'd just watched. And then a small clawed hand started clapping, fierce and unsteady, from a cadet whose wing arm was still healing. Rena's voice broke through the silence first, half sob, half cheer, and it spread through the arena like fire through dry grass. General Vorn was already on his feet in the private box, already speaking, already trying to spin it, until Commandant Iari rose beside him with a data slate, raised high enough for every open channel to catch it. "Perhaps the Assembly would like to review the real diagnostics on Kat Tolvath's injury, General," she said, "since we're already discussing what properly means." What happened to General Vorn's career after that was, as Iari put it later, a matter for people with more patience for politics than I have. What mattered in the arena was smaller and larger at once. Draxis Vorn, 3-year undefeated champion of the Spire, had just lost the only match anyone there would ever remember, and won something his father's entire war record had never given him. He pulled Rowan up off the mat himself. "You plan to lose," he said, wonder and something raw underneath it. "You planned it." "I planned to give you a choice," Rowan said. "Everything after that was yours." The Concord Assembly ratified humanity's full, permanent membership 11 days later. The official record cited demonstrated diplomatic and ethical conduct of exceptional merit. Nobody who'd stood in that hall needed the official record to know what it really meant. That night, ribs wrapped, one eye swollen shut, Rowan recorded a message for his sister. He didn't know how to explain the Assembly vote, or General Vorn's ruined career, or the strange, fragile thing that had passed between him and Draxis Vorn in front of 41 worlds. So he told her the only part that mattered. "You were right," he said. "We don't win by being the biggest thing in the room." 41 worlds had come to the Aurelian Spire, expecting to watch a human get taught his place. Instead, they watched him redraw it.